Hello and welcome to Central Methodist University's second annual Geist-Yancey Lecture on the Arts. I'm Kavita Tatwalker, a professor of English and chair of the Humanities Division. I would like to take a moment to thank the Office of Advancement and Alumni Relations for organizing this lecture and bringing in the speaker. If I could ask everyone to put your phones and iPads on silent, please. Thank you. This series would not be possible if it were not for Dr. Joe Geist. Could you please stand, Dr. Geist? Dr. Geist was a faculty member at Central Methodist College from 1972 to 1998 and was named Professor Emeritus upon his retirement from teaching. He served as curator of the Ashby Hodge Gallery of American Art from 1998 to 2014 and now serves as its registrar. His professional life has been dedicated to the furthering of the liberal arts, culture, literature, and learning. Mr. Tom Yancey, a 1954 alumnus of Central, joined the faculty in the Swinney Conservatory in 1958. In 1972, he served as the conservatory's dean, and in 1995, he accepted professor emeritus status. In addition to being an accomplished musician, Yancey was a well-known artist. He, along with Geist, was a co-founder of the Ashby Hodge Gallery of American Art and was curator of the gallery from 1993 until 1998. Yancey passed away in 2019. The purpose of the Geist-Yancey Lectureship is to provide a lasting legacy of Joe's and Tom's endless pursuit of furthering of the pillars of arts, culture, and learning in higher education. The lectures have a theme of cultural affairs, and the speaker is a noted national individual from outside the CMU community. This brings me to introducing my friend and Oscar nominee, Nathan Truesdell. Truesdell is a multi-hyphenate filmmaker from Clark, Missouri, who has been nominated for an Academy Award, a PGA Award, an IDA Award, and was selected for the inaugural Doc NYC 40 Under 40 list. He also won a Cinema Eye honor for cinematography. Truesdell has worked in many roles in film, from starring in his friend's Zombies with a Message movie, to art director, cinematographer, editor, director of photography, director, and producer. Truesdell has done it all. His directorial work includes the award-winning Balloon Fest, The Water Slide, The Art of Making Money, It's Coming, and When LAPD Blows Up Your Neighborhood. He was the camera head for the critically acclaimed HBO show How To with John Wilson. He produced and was co-director of photography for the Tribeca winner and Oscar nominee Ascension, and produced documentaries such as We Always Lie to Strangers, Caucus, Convention, and Peace in the Valley, and co-produced The Gospel of Eureka. He was a cinematographer on Dope is Death, Deprogrammed, and was a cinematographer and editor on Killing Them Safely. He was also an art director for the narrative film You're Next. His films have appeared at numerous festivals, including Sundance, Tribeca, South by Southwest, Toronto International Film Festival, and the True False Film Fest in Columbia. Truesdell is a graduate of Moberly High School and the University of Missouri. Please give a warm welcome to Oscar nominee and my husband's former roommate, Nathan Truesdell.
Hello, thank you, Kavita. Thank you, Dr. Geist. Thank you, CMU. And thanks everybody for being here. I'll just jump right into it. So my name is Nate Truesdell, and like Kavita said, I'm a documentary producer, editor, cinematographer, and director. I currently live in Los Angeles and have collaborated on dozens of films, both fiction and nonfiction. These films range from very, very small short films that no one has ever seen to films with worldwide distribution. And I worked on commercials, boring corporate videos, music videos, and all kinds of other stuff. And I worked on movies that are very, very bad. And to one particular film that ended up with my wife and I being nominated for an Academy Award. But even the bad ones I find a lot of creative value in. And it was part of my film education, filmmaking education, that is ongoing. making films has allowed me to explore the world and meet tons of interesting and nice people. I'm not gonna go over every detail, but I wanted to give you this intro and tell you where I'm from and how I got here. And then I'm gonna share some stories from my filmmaking journey over the past 20 years. So I grew up in Clark. Does anybody know where Clark is? Yeah, it's about 20 miles away from here. Is it 20 miles away from here? I'm looking at my sister. What?
A little farther.
Okay, a little further than 20 miles away from here. And I went to Moberly High School. And that's where me and my friends started playing around with cameras and the idea of making movies. A bunch of them are over here also. Most all of us are cinephiles, and we love to watch. Well, I personally love campy horror movies, indie movies, and documentaries. And at a certain point, we started dabbling in making them. I started. I was doing a lot of camera experiments in high school on VHS and shooting just because I was bored, and I would run around with the camera a lot. And I started shooting more and more stuff as time went on. I didn't have any editing software, so would shoot things and do editing in camera, which means that I would like get a shot this direction, and then the next shot would be this direction, and then if you played the tape back, then everything would supposedly line up. I mean, it's a messy way of doing it, but it actually was a way that I learned how to make films because it allowed me to understand how editing works. Yeah, I didn't have, this would have been on VHS, so I didn't actually have a way to ingest the tapes. And so, but I did this for years, and we were also doing, making like small horror movies and doing like little special effects and blood effects at the time too, and just figuring out the process of like art direction and all that. Then I went to college at Mizzou. And at the time, which would have been 1997, I studied computer science because it seemed like an actual job, unlike filmmaking. And I never really had considered that filmmaking could be a job at that time. But I continued to shoot videos and play with cameras and was doing weird experimental stuff with VCRs of my friends and shooting bad skateboarding videos and things like that. And since I was in the engineering school, like I said, I never thought that that was actually a job. But around that time, there seemed to be a lot of things popping up in Columbia, and a surprising number of other people who were making films around Columbia. And small groups started to form. Like I remember the beginning days of Ragtag when they were playing movies at the Blue Note, and saw a lot of movies there. David Wilson actually made a movie in Moberly that played a Ragtag at the Blue Note that was about like my group of friends, which was fun. And things like there was a monthly meeting called CMRA that started up that we used to go to, and then the public access channel in Columbia started as well, called Cat TV, and people could make things that were aired in Columbia. Chase Thompson famously had a great Cat TV show. After college, oh, and at the same time, this is the time that cameras started to get better and easier to use, and documentary filmmaking started to boom a lot more because the technology with like mini DV was introduced, and there was great editing software started to come out and better computers, so it was more accessible for everyone. And after I graduated, I got a job as a computer programmer for about 2 years. But I had decided in my last probably year of college that it wasn't really for me, that it wasn't actually something that I was that interested in. But I got a job, started saving money, and was looking for an exit strategy to get out of that. I didn't really like sitting in a cubicle in front of a computer, but it's kind of ironic now because I sit in front of a computer a lot and do editing and doing research. But on top of that, I get to travel a lot and do a bunch of other things. I started working on various films at the time. Me and my friend Justin were actually trying to figure out the exact timeline yesterday and today, but we were shooting, people started shooting horror films that I was PAing on, and we started doing like art direction on these various films. And at one point, a friend and a Mizzou professor asked me to work on his film that had a small amount of money, and it was going to be 4 weeks. And so I asked for my job to give me unpaid leave, and my boss said no, so I quit that job, put my 2 weeks notice in, I think that day, and then started my professional filmmaking journey, I guess. I think that movie, I think I got paid $400 for the 4 weeks of work, which is, you know, illegal, but whatever, it was fun. And yeah, we worked basically for free doing art department with Justin. And we were building lots of sets and props and doing like monster makeup and just stuff like that. And the two of us teamed up on quite a few other smaller movies that had actual budgets. And we learned a lot, and we learned about how professional movies were made. That's a computer science, that programming job was the last job that I had, and I've been a freelance filmmaker ever since. This would have been 2006. 2006. Around this same time, my friend Brock started a production company in Columbia called Boxcar Films. And we started making various corporate videos and making low budget shorts and just kind of dabbling in whatever filmmaking we could do. A lot of this stuff people haven't seen, but you know, and we were able to actually pay the bills and run this production company and make a little bit of money and learn a lot about what we were doing. We were also hired at that time to teach the filmmaking boot camp, SFI, at Stevens College. And I believe after that first year, I went on to teach there 7 more times. And True False started, and I was living in Columbia at the time and started doing various jobs for them. And over the years, I've done installations and thrown parties for them. And at one point, I was in charge of making the bumpers for the festival, which the bumpers are the things that play before the movies. I'm going to show you one that I made that I really am proud of. Does anybody remember that one? That's funny. It's got the True False logo on it that we realized that was playing at True False this weekend. The same logo at the very end that I made in like 2006. Me and Johnny Pez couldn't figure out which one of us made it. Anyway, I think it was me. But at that time, during True False, I used to submit to Give Me Truth a lot. I think I submitted made 6 films for it, maybe 5. And Cat TV used to have these 24-hour film competitions where you would make a film. They basically would give you a genre and an idea, and then you had 24 hours to make a completed film. And that actually was a really great way to learn how to shoot and edit quickly and do storytelling. And we had a lot of fun doing that, just staying up all night making movies. But basically, the film scene in Colombia has a huge impact on my whole personal growth and career as a filmmaker. And through all this, I started to get bigger opportunities to collaborate on films, both documentary and fiction, a bunch of which Kavita listed off there, and started to develop a skill set and have like a pretty versatile skill set to do a lot of different roles. So I'm gonna tell, that's my very long intro. Now I just want to tell some stories about things that have happened over the years that I think is funny, that I think are funny, and maybe you guys will too, hopefully. So first story I got is about Fayette, because I have, working with Chase Thompson, who was a professor at Stevens College. We would come out to Fayette and shoot movies. I think we made 3 movies out here, shot 3 different ones. And over the years, this would be part of SFI, the Stevens College Summer Boot Camp, which basically would be like 5 to 10 days of just making a film. And the professors would write scripts and we would shoot music videos or whatever over the course of those days and teach the students every aspect of filmmaking. It was always a great way for people to learn, I think. But one year we were shooting at a house out here. Not exactly sure. I was wondering where that house is. I'll find out from Chase's parents later. But I think the shoot was 6 days long and we were driving back and forth from Columbia. And I had the Stevens short bus, which they use for their soccer team. And I was driving it back and forth full of gear and as well as teaching cinematography that year. And to these SFI shoots, I would bring a lot of my own stuff. Like I would pack my laptop, for example, and bring various camera equipment in a pretty big camera bag, just additional things that we might need. And so I brought a bunch of lenses, expensive sound gear and stuff like that. And at a certain point on one of these gravel roads out here, we had a shot, like a crane shot of a cop car driving off into the distance quickly. And so we had set up the crane in the middle of the gravel road and basically had 20 students out in the middle of this gravel road. And the crane was set up in the middle, so like no cars could get around, but it was probably 10 in the morning and nobody was out there. And yeah, there was probably almost 30 people out there, and we had a fake cop car. We didn't exactly have permission to be there, but you normally wouldn't think that this would be a problem. But as we were setting up one of the shots, I heard one of the students from far away yell, "Tractor!" from down the road, and we looked down the road and there was just a big tractor coming towards us, and which doesn't sound that scary, you know. It was good, but it was going as fast as it possibly could, and it was pulling a tiller. And so we all just stopped and stared at it, expecting it to stop, and then we're gonna be like, "Oh, sorry, we'll move all the stuff." it'll take us 5 minutes. And instead, the tractor just came right at us, took a turn into the ditch, and then just drove around us and took off down the road. The bad thing was, we had staged all of the gear in the ditch off to the side of the road. And so he ran right over the top of my camera bag that had my laptop in it. And like, I still have that laptop and it's like completely warped, like the lenses were shoved right into the inside of it. And so, are you here? Okay, good. So we had to spend the rest of the day trying to track him down. And at one point we called the sheriff. The sheriff came out and had a pretty funny conversation with our cop, who was who was an actor who was dressed up like a cop and had his own cop car. Because he was also a professor at Stevens and took charge. And like the documentary crew was shooting the fake cop talking to the real cop. Anyway, we got to the bottom of it and got it all sorted out. A bunch of my expensive equipment was busted, but we got insurance to cover it at some point. And that was a pretty exciting day of shooting in Fayette. Most of my experiences in Fayette were very, very positive. That's just a very good standout story. Okay, literally, okay. So I'm gonna talk about a video that I worked on one time. You just mute it, actually.
You wanna mute it?
Yeah. I'll just do it way. This is a music video, but I'm just gonna talk over it because so this is just to give an example of some of the stuff that I've done over the years. I worked with this band on this video and it took maybe, I think we shot for 3 weeks to get this one take here, right? And it was, I was the camera department on this video, which like, if you're wondering what that means for this just like locked off shot, it doesn't mean much, but I was there the whole time and shooting like behind the scenes stuff. And we had maybe, I'd say at least 10 professional Hollywood dog trainers that we were working with. And so it was really fun. This is one of my favorite shoots because we just hung out with dogs all day and then tried to convince them to do this. I think we did like 167 takes of this, maybe. And it just started, and that was after we started counting, because we did rehearsals for weeks also. Oh yeah, there was another guy who shot this in 3D while we were there. But yeah, this was just a very fun job that I had, I guess. I'll let it keep playing. So, wait, I'll show you guys the behind the scenes actually. Yeah, so this is what our set looked like. I actually shot all of this stuff that you can see. I set up like 4 different cameras and got it from take 72. actually find me in here. Yeah, there's me. With the camera roaming on the top. Anyway. I worked on 4 of those guys' music videos, and they were always a great time. Also did a lot of work working on political documentaries over the years. The first one was about the 2008 Obama's Democratic National Convention, and the last one that I worked on was the 2016 election of Donald Trump. We made films and TV series about the DNC, the RNC, the Iowa caucuses, Senate and congressional races, and all the presidential races in those times. And I spent a lot of time with former presidents and presidential candidates. I've had the privilege of doing that, which is fascinating. One time Donald Trump looked at me and he was like, "Who do you work for?" Because I had like gotten past his security detail. And I was one time stood on stage with Bernie Sanders and stood behind him because he didn't have any security detail. At one point, we had begun to make a new political documentary that we hadn't announced to the public, and we weren't really telling our friends about it. And we were just trying to not ruin our access to this. So I went to this rally in Iowa, and I put a DSLR around my neck to try to look like a tourist, which is a great trick to use if you're making a documentary, just to not look like you're a person that's a real filmmaker. And so I snuck up and got all these shots of Sarah Palin after her movie premiere. And then a couple days later, my friend was like, "I think I figured out what you were doing." And I was like, "Oh, really? How?" And she just sent me this. Which, like, you know, I'd say that I look really low key there, but I think it's kind of obvious what I'm doing. Yeah, I mean, the AP photographer obviously like had me keyed right up there. That was fun. That's my only political story that I'm gonna tell. Thank God. In the last year that I lived in Colombia, I worked on this movie called You're Next, this horror film, which is a pretty big horror movie that Lionsgate distributed, and it premiered at Toronto. The person who wrote it is from Colombia, and it was the, I think, second or third film that they had shot in Colombia. And they hired a whole bunch of people from Colombia to work on this movie. And it was a great time, a great experience for everybody. I was the art director and prop master for the production, which was very fun. I think it's one of the last, like, yeah, it's definitely like the last big narrative film that I worked on. And we shot it out by the golf course in Columbia, over by Stevens College, actually. And working in narrative films is very hierarchical, and there are more like 60 people on the crew, where documentaries is about 2 or 3. And everybody kind of has to take care of their own stuff. And at one point, so I was in charge of all the props and everything that weren't weapons. And at one point, there was a scene in the basement with a camera that needed to be mounted, and it was gonna like flash and show the bad guy, right? And so the DP decided to get a gigantic flashlight. Like the flashlight was like this tall. And he wanted to use that flashlight as the light in the basement instead of just using the lights for some reason. But so we bought this flashlight and set it up and did some testing with it. And then the next day when we went to go shoot it, someone had stolen it. I have my suspicions of who it was. But this being a film set, there was a lot of everyone just tries to not get in trouble as much as possible, and you just wanna like, not cause any trouble. And everyone was like, well, whose department is this? And they were like, is this a prop? Because it was like replacing the camera. And I was like, it's absolutely not a prop. This is a light. And the lighting department is like, no, that's part of the camera department because the DP bought it. And so at the end of the day, nobody could figure out who to blame for this thing getting stolen. And I'm pretty sure it was the stunt coordinator that stole it. I forget his name. He's not from Columbia though, so he can take that. And at the end of the day, my friend Kamal got blamed for it, and he was the DIT. He literally had nothing to do with anything, but they just had to find somebody to yell at. But yeah, that story's not as funny as I thought it was. Sorry, I got too many stories. I'm not gonna tell them all. I'll tell them to you later. So a bunch of you saw Ascension earlier in here, and there are some pretty prominent sex doll factories in that movie, right? Now, a lot of people ask us how hard it was to get access to a lot of the places that we went to in China. And for some reason, the easiest place that we ever had to get access to were these two different sex doll factories. Like we just emailed them and they were like, yeah, come on by, just bring your camera, you can do whatever you want. Sounds great. But one of the factories that we went to, they were working on robotics and AI to implement in their sex dolls whenever we got there. And they had this robotic head prototype that they were working on. They look like this. And so as it was, we couldn't really shoot it as part of Ascension because we didn't really know how to contextualize it, and it was just too weird, like it would have just taken over the whole movie. But so we decided to sit down and interview it. So this is it in front of our camera, actually. This is part of its interview. And the workers were all very excited for us. They were like, oh yeah, the sex doll is actually bilingual. It speaks Chinese and English. And in Chinese though, it only acted like a Siri, so you could just ask it like about the weather or the stock market or just like to play a song. And they'd only licensed like 3 songs. But yeah, and so we sat down and we started asking it questions in English, and it just kept saying things like let's get back to that list that I'm making, and I was like, what are you talking about? And then at one point, we're trying to ask it about like sentience and just trying to get like interesting poetry out of it to figure out like what it thought about the world. And then at one point I asked it where it was from, and it said the North Pole. And then I'm like, okay, like you're talking about a list and you're talking about the North Pole. And then during this interview, then I start like asking it like, okay, well, do you know Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? And it just keeps saying, let's get back to this list that I'm making for the good children. And it turns out that they had put in, inexplicitly, they didn't realize they had put in a database for a mall Santa. Then we actually ended up like telling the story to we interviewed the engineer and told him the story, and he was extremely amused about this, which was very funny. I should have brought the footage, but it's like I'm so confused in the footage and like just yelling, "Do you know Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer?" That was like way too confusing to use in any sort of movie. Uh, Couple things that I got to do. I was, when working on How To with John Wilson, I got to have that show, I worked on that show for over 4 years. And it was bookended with the first thing that we went and shot was MTV Spring Break in Cancun, Mexico, which was pretty much a shit show. Um, we went to spring break and you know, it's MTV Spring Break is a TV show in and of itself, and they somehow had decided to resurrect this show in 2017 in the most like just like the dumbest idea to try to make that show again, because you go and it's like 70% drunk guys who are just like sexually harassing our crew members, and we were there to shoot our own TV show as a joke on top of it without getting caught. And somehow we're able to do that. I think that everyone just thought that we were with MTV. But the last shoot that I did of that show, almost 5 years later, was at Burning Man in the Nevada desert, where we did the same exact thing, where we were just trying to secretly shoot the show. We were, unfortunately, I think we spent like 5 days there. There were 8 of us, and I had a picture, but I couldn't get it off my phone. And we weren't able to use any of the footage at the end of it. It was the most expensive thing that we did for the show. It was like a crazy production because we had to get people to drive like 3 RVs from Oregon to the Nevada desert and bring like all of our gear and food and everything in. And then Burning Man just shut us down completely and said, no, you can't use any of that. So it just, nobody's ever seen it. Basically, we just went and had a good time at Burning Man, which was pretty fun. Okay, last story. So we ended up getting nominated for an Oscar for Ascension, me and my wife, which was mind-blowing. Somebody the other day said that it was probably the most experimental film to ever be nominated for an Oscar. And that maybe is true. I don't know how you judge that. But even though we were underdogs and documentary filmmakers, the people at the Academy treated us just like they did Steven Spielberg, and it was quite an amazing experience, especially for me, just being some kid from Clark, right? And on the day of the awards, we stayed at a hotel in Hollywood, and someone had got Jess a designer dress, and she had a hair and makeup person, and we were staying in this hotel, and people just kept stopping by the hotel and being like, "You guys are gonna win. You got your speech ready?" And you know, it's kind of a stressful environment, and we had even like looked up the odds the night before of us winning. We were against Questlove's Summer of Soul, which is an amazing movie, and like definitely nobody was going to vote for us. And we looked up the odds, and it was like 300 to 1 or something. And our poor producer came from China and actually looked it up, and she's like, "We're not going to win, are we?" I was like, "Did you think we were going to win?" But yeah, so Jess was like just sadly in a chair, just like trying to come up with a speech that she was gonna say for like 20 seconds at the Oscars. And I looked at her at one point, and she just had like this look on her face, and then she just started crying. And I was like, "Oh no." And then like pulled her aside, took her into the bathroom, and I was like, had to give her this pep talk that was like, "Look, we are absolutely not gonna win. Do not worry about the speech. If we win by some miracle, like I'll just go up there and wing it. Like it'll be amazing. Like who cares?" And our friends who had been there before gave us some great advice, which was to just go there and have fun. Go like just talk to celebrities, try to stay on the red carpet as long as you can, like, and just casually do whatever you want. And this calmed her down completely. She stopped caring about the speech, and we like went and had a blast. That's my wife, Jess, and Olivia Coleman. So, appearance, everything over here. Creeping on me. And so, yeah, we had a blast. It was incredible. And our category was Best Documentary Feature Film presented by Chris Rock. And I'll just play the video. So Maggie's our wonderful producer from China who came to the US to go to the Oscars. And she was in the audience. She's sitting right next to me, and she was recording since it was our category. And here, I'll just show you this video.
It was a GI changer. I'm good.
So yeah, that just exists on mine and Maggie's phones. Like nobody's ever. I've never watched that on a big screen before. But yeah, you can kind of tell how real that was. Still kind of looked like he fake slapped him though a little bit, didn't it? Anyway, so I was right. Questlove won. Congratulations to Questlove. But I always say that like we made it very far and we won. We all got slapped by Will Smith a little bit. So I'm gonna wrap it up. And I'll get some questions from you guys too. Me and Jess are currently making another film that follows the global food supply chain, and we're currently shooting shrimp, octopus, orangutans, and pigs all over the world. And we've probably shot like 40% of this movie. I thought I had a picture, maybe not. But that one's probably not going to come out. We're not going to finish that for a couple more years, probably. But currently making that. I'm currently making another short about mystery seeds that everyone got in the mail, and a film about clowns. So anyway, that's just kind of a sample of things that have happened over the years. And I would love to take some questions from y'all.
The clouds, the clouds.
Clowns.
Clowns, okay, sorry.
Clowns would be good too.
Like, I know you worked on How to with John Wilson. I was wondering, like, show like that falls in the reality TV, like documentary, like how much of that was like actually documentary versus like planned out? Like, was it all just real, or was it?
Yeah, for the most part. I always use an example of how that's real. Like there's a script that's written for that show, right? But have you seen the show?
Oh yeah, look.
So like there's the referee episode where we go to the referee dinner. That was written in the show as we go to a referee dinner, and the referees are very organized and very like on point, and that was the joke that we were supposed to get. But we go to the referee dinner, and everyone's just wasted and stealing everything and trying to steal the money and trying to just like, and it's just a nightmare. And so it's planned out to, like, we planned on going to the referee dinner, we planned on shooting referees, and we were like, also like, when it was written, it's like, what is a referee dinner? And we literally did run into a referee in a referee store, and he's like, you wanna come to the referee dinner? And we were like, yeah. So yeah, it's a little fortuitous for sure. There's a lot of things that happen, but like all the stuff that happens on the street, I would shoot some of that. John would shoot some of it. There's 4 other people that shoot some of that. And it was really just like a scavenger hunt every day for years.
Said you and your wife worked on a new movie. Are you looking for an intern to roommate?
Maybe. We got a good team. It makes it much easier to raise funds. But if you're looking to get into film, you should send me an email, for real.
Are there like, how did like the people, the other directors, actors who were like acclaimed stuff, did they like look down on you guys at the Oscars and all, or like, were they like, friendly and cordial to you, or?
Everyone was absolutely very, very sweet. Weird thing happened though. There's like, it's interesting being around celebrities because there's like various level of how famous they are. Like Will Smith was a good example, like going to like very exclusive things where it was just like other famous people. Everyone still wanted to get a picture with Will Smith. And like when we were standing there talking to Olivia Colman and Questlove in line for the red carpet, which took like an hour and a half. But at a certain point, somebody behind us was like, clear the way. And everybody like moved to the side, and Zendaya just walked up and skipped the whole line. Didn't say a word to anybody, and she's like this tall, and we were like, I was standing next to Olivia Colman, and we were all just very scared of her, and then she just walked the red carpet, and it was like, was she even in a movie this year? Like, we were there for like 5 minutes, and yeah, but yeah, I guess we were treated the same as everybody except for Zendaya. Zendaya? How do you say her name?
Yeah,
Zendaya. Sorry.
So you live in LA now, as you said.
Yeah.
Do you think it would have been more or less difficult to make a name for yourself when you started there?
Probably more actually. I feel like there were so many opportunities here to do things and just experiment with stuff and learn about making film like in the country, or just like, whereas in LA there's a lot of pressure, a lot of competition, a lot of like you know, all people doing the same thing the same way. And I didn't realize until much later in my life that like people didn't grow up with 8 friends who were all like, I'm gonna make documentaries when I grow up, and then like, me too, and then like they all do it. Like most people don't know other people from their small towns that make documentaries. So yeah, I think it would be harder, but I mean, nobody's path is gonna be the same, right? So it's hard to say.
What was probably one of your favorite props to work with in your events?
What was one of my favorite props to work with? So I didn't do the weapons, because they had like a special weapons person. And I was really into buying lamps. There was so much, it's so fun to like go to these like little flea markets around town. There's so many of them, and I would like go in there and talk to the old ladies working in there and be like, can you show me all your lamps? And they'd be like, what are you using them for? I'm like, we're gonna smash them in this horror movie. And they love that. I don't know, it was just fun. Like, lamps is my answer, I guess. Lamps. Lamps. Lamp in here.
So obviously you guys got nominated for an Oscar. Like, how'd you find out that you guys were nominated? How'd you guys react?
They do the stupid announcements the announcements aren't stupid, the time that they do it is stupid, at 5 in the morning on the West Coast. So I basically like stayed up all night, and it was just on the internet. They just like listed off And Jess was asleep, actually. I had to wake her up and tell her that she got nominated for an Oscar. And we were scouting for this animal movie because I think we were like subconsciously just trying to hide from it.
Like, did you guys expect to get nominated?
No, I mean, no, not really. At that point, it was possible. Whenever we started, like, whenever MTV had like purchased the film and was like, we're gonna try to win awards with this, like, even all the people that work in that space were just like, it's not gonna work. And then it started happening. It slowly just like kept snowballing.
Do you write a lot of storyboards or like draw them, or what is your like pre-production process with like the difference with documentaries and non?
You basically, right, you make like pitch decks that are like it's kind of visual and written samples of the idea that you're going for. And it's kind of standard. It kind of looks like a magazine article or something. And it continually changes too. I can show you one if you're interested afterwards.
So what's your take on like utilizing TikTok or Instagram as like a support, like a short term, or what's it called, short form, excuse me, short form content as far as like maybe practicing to make the, like say you want to make a mini short or film or something like that. Maybe utilizing that as like a good way to kind of get out there now, or
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I think that you can find, it's absolutely like a great way to learn how to like storytell, right? Kind of like similar to what I was saying, how I learned to make films. Like I didn't go to school at all, and it was just like looking at things and figuring out how other people did stuff. And I mean, those are great video platforms to like figure out how to do it. I think I personally am too old at this point to figure that out, but I think that, yeah, you should.
What are your favorite movies and
Favorite movies and documentaries? Oh man, that's a tough question. I think I always say my favorite documentary is this movie called Mandabala. I don't know if anybody's seen it. You guys seen it? Trey's seen it. Yeah, Send the Bullet. Sandra Bullet. And my favorite narrative film is hard to say. I don't know. It's hard to pick one.
in the horror theme?
In the horror theme. Oh
What's
man.
your favorite scary movie?
It's my favorite scary movie. It's Scream. That's a Scream quote, right? I really like the Friday the 13th series, even though it's just the same movie over and over again. No, Hellraiser. Hellraiser. Right? The Fly. What?
So, the way of how to journalism works, you guys kind of just follow people and then was there any particular time where you were nervous or scared with the situation you get in?
Oh man, there was like, you would have to make, so a lot of the times there are 5 of us that just wander the streets and look for the weird moments in the show. If you're not familiar with the show, basically it's just very New York and just like finding like literally like people like falling on a banana peel or something, and then like it's cut into the show is like a good way to describe it, I guess. But we would go out and shoot anything, and you're just looking for the weirdest content that you think is funny. And it's like you have to make like real like moral decisions when you're shooting this. Like one day I found 2 stabbings one week, and it was like, is this a joke that can be in the show, or like, and it's like, it's like a Wall Street guy crying is funny, but like an unhoused person crying is definitely not funny, and so you like shoot the Wall Street guy, but not the other person, and it's, I don't know, it was interesting and kind of like traumatizing at times, because you would see like a lot of people doing drugs on the street and just like some very sad things. People, like, I shot a breakup one time that was like kind of on the line. Cause then you'd have to go up to the people and be like, hey, I was secretly filming you. Which is exactly what, they signed release forms. They were like, what, why would you do that? And they're like, oh, we're making a TV show. And, but you could like show people the clip and be like, there's no audio, I can't hear what you're saying, so. But yeah, I think that was the scariest part, would be for the person that was with me, who would have to just go approach everybody and be like, hey, you see us over there? We're secretly filming you. See that creep? Yeah, he's filming you.
Someone in the Zoom has a question.
Okay, cool.
How do you feel your formative years in Middle Missouri shaped you as a documentarian?
How do I feel in my formative years? I know that person.
That's the question.
How do I feel that my formative years in mid-Missouri shaped me as a documentarian? I mean, in a lot of ways, I think, I don't know how I can expand on that more, but I think that like, there is like something in the water in mid-Missouri, definitely, for people making documentaries. It's poison. No.
We do have a bird in our, in the water tower van, so
Oh.
we actually have to be careful about, talking about the water
All right, don't drink the water.
here.
It's a metaphor, people. But people ask me sometimes like, oh, you make documentaries because of true false, and it's like, well, no, true false maybe exists because people in Columbia made documentaries also, and like, why does the journalism school exist? Like, I don't know, it's just something, it just feels like something that people from here are interested in more than most places, in a weird sort of way.
Getting it into like getting known, is that a lot of, like, how much of it is just knowing the right people versus like producing good content? Like, is there a little bit of luck into it, do you think? Or do you think it's like straight up, if you're good, you'll be, meritocracy?
No, it's absolutely like luck and who you know. But I think that's maybe true for most things. But definitely in this line of work, like just being allowed to get jobs is like just knowing people and people knowing your work. And it like rotates too, right? Like, so I edit, but I don't really like sell myself as an editor to people. And so nobody's ever gonna hire me to edit their movie because they don't think of me as like an editor, right? But if I started telling people like, oh, I'm trying to find a movie to edit, then I would probably get hired to do one. And so it's just kind of how you present yourself, definitely other people that you know, and a whole lot more, for sure.
I heard you say something about skateboarding videos. Do you know like what the best way to break into that industry is? Because that's an industry I'm kind of interested in. I'm a big skateboard film fan.
I don't even know what the industry has become today. There was like a heyday of skateboarding videos in like the like late '90s Birdhouse days and that video, The End. I don't know if you've seen that. Yeah, there's some really great stuff. I don't even know what it is anymore. I could try to find out for you, but I have no idea. But just make stuff. Just continue to make stuff and learn and figure out who's doing what, because I'm sure it's probably a very small world too, right? Yeah.
What is your contact?
NathanTruesdell@gmail.com.
So obviously you've done like your short documentaries like Balloon Fest or The Water Slide, you've done Ascension. What has drawn you to like deciding to focus on those certain topics? Like, what is the appeal on doing those? Like, you know what I mean? Like, when you pick a topic, I guess.
I think for those, I just am really interested in like really dumb hubris and like, yeah. I don't know why I'm interested in that, but it's something that I'm definitely drawn to, like these big, like.
It's kind of like something that seems like so obviously wrong, but it's work.
Yeah, well, and stylistically, I think that actually those movies have a lot to do with me, like growing up watching KOMU. Because it's the best local news. And it's like, you can't watch any of the other ones because like, you never know what's gonna happen on KOMU. And it's so funny and it's like, it's great, it's the best. And I think that actually like really like seeped into my brain. Is anybody from KOMU here? See a traffic guy leave? Anybody else?
Let's give a round of applause for Nathan.
Thanks, Kavita.
There are cookies in the back, so